Hello, everyone. Welcome to another live show on She Knows Arsenal. Make sure you guys are liking the video and subscribing to the channel, getting into the chat, letting me know where you're watching in from, how you're feeling today. I have a question. Before we get into all the mess about Arsenal and all the transfers and all that, what are you guys up to for the summer? I want to know, like beyond watching YouTube videos about Arsenal transfers and waiting for the season to come back, do you guys have any plans? Are you guys planning on going somewhere? Are you going on vacation? Are you just working? Like, what are you up to this summer? I was talking to my best friend yesterday, and we were talking about we had bought tickets to go see Janet Jackson, maybe like it had to have been 2 or 3 months ago. And both of us like forgot about the concert, and it's next week. So when she was like, there's something that I feel like, and I'm like, is it the Janet concert? Is it in June or July? Both of us have forgotten about it. So I'm going to see Janet in a couple of days. So I have to like figure out what I'm going to wear. I'm so excited. But literally, I thought it was next week, next month. And I'm planning on going to some different sporting events, like maybe a WNBA game, stuff like that. But beyond that, I'm not really planning on doing much beyond working. But I want to know what you guys are up to this summer. Like, do you guys have any plans? Like, are you guys just chilling? What is your vibe for the summer? Because I was like, I wonder what they're doing. Like, am I the only one that doesn't have big plans? you know? So yeah. Keenan says Bakayoko equals Doku 2.0, Sesko, Bakayoko, and a couple more signings. I'm excited about this window. Johnny D says, now what's the truth about Kudus? We're going to get into it. Johnny says, I doubt the truth. That's the truth Jess wants to reveal to us. Ramen says, happy Friday, Jess. Hope you're doing well. I am doing well. Blank Face Killer says, I plan on smoking that Zaza. Okay. And thank you. I also wanted to just make sure that I said this. Just thank you to everybody that joined the Classic Watch Along yesterday. We watched the 2020 FA Cup final. And when I tell you that it made me like respect Arteta so much more, because despite the fact that we won that game and we won a trophy, we were atrocious. Like, I'm not even being dramatic. We were not very good. The game was horrendous in terms of like neither team had any sort of quality, except for like the only bit of quality was Aubameyang's goal. It's crazy. Not the penalty, but the little chip with the left foot. So yeah, thank you, Mikkel, for taking us out of the what do you call them, like the dungeon, because we were so bad. But we watched that and we just talked about anything and everything. It was funny seeing that like neither team had any of those players in their teams now. Like literally at both 11s, none of those players exist on those teams anymore. Watching Jorginho was hilarious. They brought Ross Barkley off of the bench. I was just like, this is just like a whole nother era. And I know it was like 3 years ago or 4 years ago. So it's like, of course things change, but did they change that drastically? Like, that's crazy. We also came to the conclusion that the only players that could get into this Arsenal team are probably Aubameyang, Xhaka, and Emi Martinez. Everybody else, we definitely upgraded on. So, yeah, it was a fun time. So, thank you to everybody who joined. And we will vote for the next one on Monday. I'll give you guys a couple more options on games that we can watch together, and we'll vote on it, and then we'll do another one this coming Thursday as well. So what we're going to talk about today is the truth about what happened with Muhammad Kudus last summer and why it matters now. I know a lot of times when we miss out on targets or we're linked to somebody and we don't get them, sometimes like it's just, well, we didn't want them and they weren't going to work out for us anyway. And so it was fine. But I do think that Kudus is definitely a player that we could have used and could still use. And it was strange that we didn't really get going on that deal. And so some information has come out from Team News and Ticks. And so I want to go over that. That gives us some more insight. It also gave us a little bit of insight on Arsenal's relationship with Ajax and how that relationship can help us in the future. probably with, like a signing like Hato. So we'll talk about that. Arsenal have entered the race for Johan Bakayoko. I said this when we played against PSV in the Champions League that I would take him in a heartbeat. He absolutely spun Kivior in ways that Kivior will never want to see again. And I just think he looks like a really talented player. He was linked to a move to Nottingham Forest and turned it down. That's good because what we would have to pay to get him from Nottingham Forest would probably have been more than what it would take to get him from PSV. And also, he's too good to go there. Like both Bakayoko and Fofana were very close to going to Nottingham Forest. Thank God they didn't go there because I mean, you could make the argument that if the two of them went there, that they would have made that team a lot better. I don't know, because there's just such a strange situation at Nottingham Forest. But Bakayoko stayed at PSV. They did really well. And, Arsenal are interested in him or asked about him or whatever. He's also on the list for, I want to say it's Liverpool and Bayern Munich. So, and Liverpool had already kind of put their feelers out there. So, not quite sure how far along all of this stuff is, but Bakayoko is somebody that's on the radar, so we can talk about him. Nwaneri, he scored a goal for England that was outrageous, and I have the clips right here, and so we're going to talk about that too, and what his potential role could be next year. I know that we all had that big conversation when Ethan Nwaneri and Miles Lewis-Skelly and Rule Walters didn't get any minutes against Lens, and then they also did not play against PSV. And so that was like a big conversation that I kind of want to revisit now that we can all stop bullshitting about whatever and trying not to have any sort of criticism around the manager or the club. We can have an honest conversation about integrating youth, why it's important, why it's not the most important thing in the world, but just because it's not our biggest priority doesn't mean that it doesn't need to be done. So we can have an honest conversation about that because I did find that some people just didn't want any criticism. So they were trying to like make up reasons why it made sense that Ethan and Miles Lewis-Skelly didn't get a chance to play in a dead rubber. It never made sense. So we're going to talk about that. And is Sesko really Arsenal's number one target? Conflicting reports coming out today from several different sources, one being DiMarzio, which last summer was considered one of the least reliable people on the planet. Now that he's saying that Arsenal are interested in Osimhen, he's reliable again. Mo Arsenal, who's been a pretty good in the know, probably not team news and ticks levels, but probably like a level below in the know for Arsenal, saying that Sesko is not the number one option. It's Isak. So we'll tease through that a little bit because one thing Arsenal cannot be is indecisive about this striker situation. Sesko is not going to be on the shelf for very long. So, and he's the most attainable out of all of those options. So if you want him, make sure you go out and get him. Let's see who's all in here. Johnny D is in here saying, I want this guy Sesko that people said we almost signed him. Of Bakayoko, I know nothing yet. Blank Face Killer said it is important because of the cup games. Arteta never trusts his bench in cup games as well as games. Well, at least give the youngsters a go. Klopp did it all the time, and they always won the Carabao. Foxy said Bakayoko turned Brentford down as well. Stitch says hello, Jess. Hello to you as well. Sam says I missed the watch along. Wasn't feeling well. Join the next one. You guys really should. It's just a relaxed, like hanging out with friends, watching a game, getting the nostalgia on. And also we talked about a bunch of other things. We talked about transfers. We talked about everything. Like it was a really good time. Brian says most seem hesitant to embrace Kai as a starting striker for next year. Do you think that he can keep up his form going into next season? Yeah, of course. I think he can. I think the reluctance is not so much about Kai. It's about feeling like we have to buy a big striker signing. Like Kai could have scored 25 goals this season. I still feel like people would feel that way because a lot of times if you have already written somebody off in your mind, even with new information, you don't update your priors. Like you just kind of like leave it as it is. And I think at the beginning, last summer, everybody felt like we needed a striker. That was what we needed. We needed a striker. We needed a striker. In fact, this has been an ongoing conversation for Arsenal fans since Aubameyang left. And so until we get that player, it doesn't matter if Jesus plays well, if Kai plays well, if anybody plays well there will always be a reason why we need to go out and get a striker. And when say striker, they want a big name that costs a lot of money, whether that makes sense or not, whether it's feasible, whether the people that they're talking about is attainable, whether or not that person exists, it doesn't matter. The narrative is we have to buy a striker. Arsenal won't win anything until they buy a striker. And so I don't think it even has anything to do with Kai, if I'm honest. I really don't. I think Kai could score the winning goal in a Champions League final for us, and people would still, because of their initial opinion on him, would not want him. That's how I truly feel. So yeah, let's get into some of these headlines as well. Some of the smaller stories that we may not be able to fully get into today. We are going to talk a little bit about Victor Osimhen, but Arsenal are interested in Victor Osimhen. That's coming from Marzio. Again, he was not reliable last summer when he came out with the news about Declan Rice going to Man City. Now all of a sudden he's the god again. So, it all depends on, I guess, what he's saying. But he is talking about something from an Italian standpoint, I guess, because obviously, like, Osimhen is at Napoli, so maybe that's the reason why he has some sort of pulse on the situation. Zubimendi has ruled out the option of moving to Arsenal. He wants to stay in La Liga. Not really that surprised. You can kick rocks. Arsenal physio Jordan Rees is set to join Manchester United. That came from John Cross yesterday. I remember, like, when the Manchester United fans were bantering us over getting O'Driscoll. He was, quote unquote, the Robin Van Persie of medical or sports doctors or something like that. And we had gotten, like, absolutely, like, he rejected us to go to them, and he wanted to step up, only to completely, like, ruin their season because all of their players were injured the whole time. So they can also have Jordan Rees. Like, this is, like, not a big thing, but, like, I put it in there because we'll have to bring somebody in, I guess. Bayern Munich are monitoring the developments around Alexander Zinchenko. Zinchenko has 2 years left on his deal. He has not entered into any sort of contract renewal talks, which probably means that Arsenal are open to letting him go. This is the summer to get it done. If you want to move him on, this is it, because that once he gets into 1 year left, you lose a lot of your power. So this is the summer. I don't know what the market is like for him, but I can imagine Vincent Kompany wanting Zinchenko. He played with him, didn't he? Did he play with him? Yeah. Did he play with let's just say they played together, or the Manchester City connection is there. So, I could see that happening, especially with Vincent Kompany being the coach. So, yeah, let's see how that all, marinates and stuff like that. But yeah, I am excited to get into our main stories of today. Make sure you guys like this video, subscribe to the channel, and make sure you guys are in the chat. This is your show just as much as mine. And the more you guys comment and give you your opinions, the better the show is. So yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. The first thing that I want to play is just like a little video from Thierry and Freddie Ljungberg that came out right before I was about to start the show. I was like, do I want to add this in or do I not? But I feel like I do. We don't have to have, like, a long conversation about it, but I just loved it. And I just love these two so much. So let's go ahead and watch it.
Will tell me, if it wasn't for City, we would have won the league. But you have to compete against City. We had to compete against Sir Alex. It is what it is. You need to find a way to compete with what you have in front of you. One of the best team. If not, people will say the best team in history. For me, there's not a lot missing. I've just said it's the knowing that you can win.
I actually spoke to Tony Adams on the final day. His point was, like, you need to kick in that door. Because I was talking about that young team. I think in the future, like City maybe with De Bruyne, like getting a bit older, they will get trophies. And he said, like, they at some point need to kick that door in, because you need to learn to get that feeling of winning. And when you feel you learn how to win, you'll win and win and win. A little bit when we came into Arsenal, like, you know, Tony and them, how they were like, they were on you like a rash.
They were not kicking the door, they were kicking us.
The door was already off the hinges, so sorry.
I love them so much. Like that, the grin on my face when they were talking was just like, I love you. Like you gave me some of the best like memories of my life. Like I love you too. Like Freddie Ljungberg, listen, it's just watch the tapes, man. They were sensational and they know what they're talking about because they won before. But I wish this had come out the day that we had spoken about Arteta needing to win while Pep is here, because that really is the thread between like that, like this video and that show is, you know, the idea that, you know, Kevin De Bruyne and all of them are going to get older. So, you know, once Pep goes and they lose all these top quality players, then it's our time. Right. But it's for Arsenal, you know, we have went up against a version of City before, and that's Sir Alex Ferguson's Manchester United. Like as much as like City will probably go down as the best team the Premier League has ever seen. But before that was Fergie's United, and they were just as dominant in their era as City are now. But you know, Arsene was able to pinch a couple of Premier Leagues off of Manchester United while they were in their peak. And so there wasn't like a let's just wait for Sir Alex Ferguson to lose some of his powers and, you know, let's wait for their team to get a little bit shittier and all this kind of stuff, because once they do that, we'll win. It's all about like knowing you can win, and winning breeds winning. And that's why I do think that, you know, even if we don't beat Man City while Pep is here, just getting that initial trophy and knowing you can win will do this team so much good. As much as like people feel like it has to be the Premier League, it could literally just be the FA Cup. It has to be something because this team hasn't felt it yet. And I don't know that I believe that the belief is there at the end. You know, the way that we played against Everton, why are they calling me? The way that we played against Everton, you know, I could be projecting, but they didn't seem like there was any belief that anything could happen. And the thing is that sometimes when a team is up against, like if Man City have it in the back of their mind that Arsenal are going to beat Everton and they feel like they can win, they will become more nervous. I feel like Man City don't feel enough pressure from us because we don't actually believe we're going to win. And so we just make just enough of a mistake, or we look just fragile enough for them to feel confident enough to go into their final days without making any mistakes. Right. And so I think, you know, I don't necessarily feel like, you know, the Premier League will mean any less to me if we win it when Pep is not here. But I understand like the biggest confidence boost that this Arsenal team could have is winning something while Pep is here, you know, beating Man City to something. So yeah, and it's all about belief and, you know, the team actually believing that they can do it and feeling the trophy for the first time. But, you know, the longer you go without it, the more it becomes who you are, you know. And I did see something, by the way, like I love the way that Thierry and Freddie and Ian Wright speak about Arsenal. I don't think that they lie or anything like that. I don't think they come from like a place of like trying to always sound positive about everything that we do. Ian is just like, he's just a national treasure kind of person. So his vibe is always really positive. But when we're not doing well, Terry says it. When we're not doing well, you know, they'll be open and honest about it. But there are some legends of the club that I feel like always just want to like stick the boot in. Emmanuel Petit being one of them. It's funny because the day that this came out, this little clip came out. There was also an article that came out, I think it on GFN, Get More Football, French football or whatever. And he was like, the way that he said it was like, Arsenal are good losers, but I'd rather them be good winners. And I'm just like, I don't want to hear your shit, because every time we don't win, you have something nasty to say. Fuck off. So yeah, I think this is like the best advice that like winners or like people that have won before can give to this Arsenal team is that like if you have to believe that you can do it, and you can't just wait for City to fall off. You have to, if you beat them even just once, that could probably give them like the confidence to beat anybody, because you will have beaten the best team in the world, the best team anybody's ever seen. So like I said, if we win it the year after they go, like the year after Pep wins or leaves, personally, it's not going to mean anything to me, but maybe for the team, it would mean more. And maybe that's most important. So I thought that was super interesting. Really, really interesting. I loved it. Let's see. Chris Frazier says, Lord, I miss those days. That says absolute legends. Johnny D says that's what I keep on saying. Saida says, this clip is exactly why I want to win the league while Pep is still here. And maybe that's the part of it that I wasn't really keying in on, is like, as a fan, I won't care when we win it, but as the players, the mental hurdle that like that will be so massive for them, because they wouldn't have to fear anybody ever again. Because we probably, while they're playing for Arsenal, they'll probably will never meet up with another team this formidable, So, and once you beat them to something, that's it, So yeah, I don't think I thought about it that way. Ansa says, I haven't seen a team with as much belief as this Arsenal team. Just we lost one game and drew since January. Like, I don't get it. I don't know. I think maybe I'm just projecting, but I don't know. The Everton game didn't feel like they believed anything would happen. So yeah. I mean, I don't know what to say. I don't know if they believe that anything would change or not. I mean, we went down to Everton, we were playing terrible. Like, I don't know. Johnny D says, no, City is the best team in Premier League history by far. They took six titles in 7 years. United was not even close to that. I feel like if we basically anything in the past, if we compare it to what's going on now, where the game is different and you can be more dominant than you've ever been before, because football has come about. Like, it's come so far from the early 2000s that you won't let like things from the past, players and achievements from the past become less impressive if you compare it to what's going on now. So it's not about is this City team better than United? It's the City of that time period was Man United, Fergie's United. So it's really like, that's not really the point. The point is not that City are better than United, Sir Alex Ferguson's United. That was the City of that time. And so the point is that Thierry was making is that if that Arsenal team had said it's Fergie's United, they wouldn't have won anything. So comparing eras doesn't make sense, because you'll just illegitimize everything from back in the day, because football has come so far since then that achievements back then don't look as sparkly because the game is different. So that's not really the point that Thierry was making at all. Like, it's not really about that. So yeah, Sam says, I dislike Tony Adams far more than Petit. Adams hates on the club because the club denied him a job. Keenan says our quality was finally at the level with City last season, 2 or 3 final pieces to the puzzle, and we win trophies this coming season. And that's going to lead me straight into transfer talk, because I think obviously these players are going to get better, which is something that I was thinking about yesterday that I wanted to bring up on the show today, is that often we only really think about transfers and things like that. And that is a good way to bridge the gap. But equally, the players that we have, the reason why we bought them younger is because we want them to be able to get better. So we also have to take into account that, like Saka's only 22. This is not really his final level. Odegaard and Rice will get better. They're coming into their prime. So them getting better and Mikel getting better are ways for us to bridge the gap. And then comes transfer. So it's not just one thing. But the conversation around Kudus came back up today. And I was like, I was really interested in it, because I like to know what happens behind the scenes in terms of like why things didn't happen, because I really didn't understand why we didn't really go after Kudus like desperately, because he just looked like the right player. And like the funny thing about transfers, when they don't happen, a lot of people, especially the really positive bunch, will say, well, it's because we didn't want the player. It didn't happen because we didn't want them. And it's a defense mechanism, because if they go somewhere else and they do well, we have to feel like we had some sort of control and like it doesn't matter. But there's no way that Arsenal were looking at Kudus and didn't want him. Like, we actually were actively trying to get him. And so Team News and Ticks, Charles Watts, this is where the information is coming from. Arsenal were talking to Ajax about signing Kudus last summer, and Kudus and Ajax were willing to wait before the transfer to see if Arsenal could make a deal happen, but they couldn't due to financial restrictions. And so there's a lot here. It seems like a small thing, but there's a lot here, I feel like, because not only does it validate the idea that Arsenal were looking for this profile, they're looking for somebody that can play on the right, that can actually like compete with or fill in for Saka, and also could probably play multiple positions, because Kudus can play number 10, he can play number 8, he can do a lot of different things. But we do have a really good relationship with Ajax, which could be really fruitful, which we'll get to when we talk about Hato in just a second. But the most important thing to me was this last line of Arsenal couldn't make the deal happen because of financial restrictions. And we spent a lot of money last summer. We spent a lot of money on Declan Rice, which I feel like that was a perfect signing. Like, I think that went perfectly, like exactly the way I expected it to go. The only player that's went for 100 million that even looks like a 100 million pound player. Then you have Kai Havertz. We don't need to bring that back to the forefront. We know what's tea with that. Either you come to grips with the idea that he's going to be a good player for us and we made it work, or you still think it was a mistake, whatever. And then you have, the desperation to bring in the goalkeeper. Do we need to do that? I don't know. And then you have Timber, which is also, we know, going to be a slam dunk. But we often miss out on things like this because the money is not there. And that takes me always back to sales. And had we had been able to sell the likes of Eddie Nketiah, who teams were interested in, Emile Smith-Rowe, who teams were interested in, Reece Nelson, who Brighton was interested in, could we have not brought in Kudus? If we had decided to just leave it with Ramsdale and not bring in Raya, so we had this 27 million tied up and basically like some sort of like weird loan, could we have done something else? So it's all about decision making, prioritization, and this lack of sales. Maybe it's the homegrown numbers, you couldn't have sold them because of homegrown, but there has to be a way for Arsenal to be able to make sure that we get as many, because like Kudus is a game-changing signing for Arsenal that we won't be able to do now, because there's no way we're going to get him out of West Ham. There's no way we're going to get him out of West Ham, like not this summer. Like he'll probably stay for another year. And then by the time the next year rolls around, who knows what'll be happening? Who knows who will be in the forefront to get him, So it's a missed opportunity for a player that there's no doubt in my mind would have been really, really good for us. He waited to see if he can come to Arsenal, and we couldn't come up with the goods because we didn't have the money. And so last summer, would we have been, would we have been better if we had Kudus instead of Kai? Like, I don't know, so it's just such like one of those things where this summer we cannot be not selling. There has to be a market for Zinchenko if you're not going to renew him. There has to be a market for Thomas Partey because you're not renewing him. There has to be a 30 million pound bid somewhere for Eddie Nketiah. There has to be over 20 million available that comes to us from a Ramsdale sale. Those things have to happen this summer because we're probably going to get a midfielder. We're probably going to get some sort of defender. But what we do up front is going to heavily rely upon these sales. These kind of sales. We don't get the sales. We don't get Kudus. He waited. We wanted him. It's there, and other people said it, but because we didn't get him, everybody we never really were interested. You really think Arsenal were not really interested in Kudus? We just happened to be talking to him and happened to be having the discussions and it just didn't happen? Like, be serious. But we couldn't make it happen. And that annoys me a little bit because I'm just like, we need to make these sales. That's my biggest gripe always with Edu, is because we could make more signings like if we sold more, and we didn't sell enough. And some of the players that were still there did not contribute. Like Kudus could have contributed just as much, if not more, than Emil Smith Rowe, Reese Nelson, and Nketiah put together. So it's time to move them on. It's time to move them on, period. Saida says, you would think that the club learned how to sell players well to avoid these FFP situations, but I'm still pessimistic about Edu until he shows otherwise. We can do so much better than him. Chris Frazier says, Kudus was such a missed opportunity. I try not to dwell on the past, but it's genuinely annoying. That's, you know what? That's the thing. Like, I agree. Like, I don't like to dwell on the past. Like, once it's over, it's over. This just, I think because we're going into another window where we'll be looking for a player of this similar profile, there has to be a way to get it done, and not miss out on it again. We've been trying to buy another winger for at least 3 summers. This will be the 3rd summer where we've tried to buy a right winger and it falls through the cracks. So how do we make sure that doesn't happen? We have our priorities. I think the priority is always going to be a defender and a midfielder and probably the striker, but we still need the winger. Like, the fact that we're still talking about it, like, is kind of crazy. John P says, Raya had nothing to do with the Kudus deal not happening because Brentford allowed us to postpone the fee by that year. It was a lack of sales. And in the end, I prefer Havertz. Well, even if Raya didn't have anything to do with it, like you said, it's the lack of sales, which is my main point and will always be a valid point until we prove otherwise. On preferring Havertz, everybody has their own thing. I don't know if I can 100% say that I would, like, if I had the choice, even now, that seeing what Kudus did for West Ham and seeing what Havertz did for us, that I would not choose Kudus still. I still think he would have given us more impact and we wouldn't have had so much chaos at the beginning of our season if Havertz had not been, because we know what position Kudus would have played. So it's kind of like the chaos wouldn't have been there. So if you would have preferred Havertz, that's fine. After at the beginning of the summer, I would have chose Kudus, and I think at the end of the season, I probably would have still chose Kudus. And that's right now. Sorry, that might be an unpopular opinion, but it's just the truth. I don't know what to tell you. Let's see. Dale says, on a good note, at least Kudus ended up at West Ham and not a true rival. At some point, he will end up at a true rival. Like, he'll probably only spend 1 more year at West Ham, if we're honest. And then he'll end up at Liverpool or Chelsea or whatever. But fair, it's a missed opportunity. Blank Face Killer says, you can prefer Havertz all you want, but it doesn't change the fact that we spent half of the season trying to figure out where he should play. Barani says, rumors maybe, but how are Liverpool linked to sell Diaz to PSG for 75 million? Ridiculous. They sell well. I think Liverpool in general do sell pretty well. They're pretty well run. I think one thing about Liverpool is that they sell okay, and then they tend to be able to even if they miss out on targets or whatever, they still seem to be able to function, and bring in people and make it work. A lot of that was Klopp. So I don't know how that'll change with a new manager, but they seem to do pretty well. Blaze says, Kudus waited Arsenal to make the deal last transfer window. That's why it's a waste of time to keep players like ESR and Nketiah and Nelson, but some Arsenal fans are still sentimental to them. I mean, they just didn't contribute very much this season. I know people say Nketiah scored lots of goals at the beginning of the season, but did he really? I don't know. Maybe would he score 6, 7 goals or something? 3 of those being against Sheffield, who's the worst team in the world. So I don't know. I don't see a reason why any of them should be still here at the end of this next window, because we need to make space for more impactful players. And the only way you could do that is if you get the sales, because there's always a limit to what Arsenal could do just right off the bat. Everything is always about sales with us. So Got to get it done. John P says Havertz was the best player in the league since Jan. We would be nowhere near the league with just Saka backup rather than a first choice number 9. Well, let me play devil's advocate here. Kudus can also, another reason why a lot of us really liked Kudus and wanted to bring him in was because he can also play 8. So if we had started off the season with Rice at the base and Kudus as a number 8 with Odegaard, where would we have been? So even if he wasn't just a Saka backup, which he wasn't, which is why a lot of Arsenal fans really wanted him, is because of his versatility, where would we have been? It's just a question. So you can say that Havertz was the best player since January, but I think the main reason why we didn't win the league wasn't because we weren't amazing post Dubai. It was because pre Dubai, we had a midfield situation that was just like, we just weren't clicking along. So yeah, I think, listen, bringing up the past, everybody always has their own version of events and how they think things would have went. And all we know for sure is that we finished second. Havertz ended up doing well for us. I think we all can say that he's probably better at the number 9. But the one thing I just don't agree with is, like, I would have still preferred Havertz over Kudus, knowing what I know about both players now. But we can't go back. And so looking forward, the sales need to be better so we don't miss out on players like Kudus, who I think could have been very impactful for us. And there are players on the market now that can play that right wing position and can help us moving forward. And we should be looking to bring those players in because Saka cannot play another season like this. Idealistically, I think you'd want somebody that can play on the left too, but it seems like right wing is really important to the club. So maybe somebody like Bakayoko would be good for us. So we're going to talk about him in a second, but I also want to go through the some of the comments and then also talk about the relationship with Ajax just in general. Hakuza says best player in the league is crazy. Lloyd says ESR and Vieira stay. They both have qualities that can benefit the club. Ethan gets promoted. The other fringe players need to go, and upgrades have to come in. The mid look good. Bar a proper DM. I think DM is pretty much sorted with Jorginho and Declan Rice. So I don't really think DM is like a big problem. I feel like just bringing in we already talked about this, bringing in somebody that can play with Rice or instead of Rice with Jorginho kind of like not a true number 6, but somebody that can also do like the number 8 role, like a Bruno Guimaraes or a Douglas Luiz or a Fofana would be perfect for us. I do think that there is something missing between Fabio Vieira and ESR, and they don't need, like, what they give us is pieces of a good squad player, but not fully, because neither of them really play that well consistently. They don't get a lot of chances, but when they do play, it's like kind of inconsistent and choppy. So I actually think like the opportunity would be to like consolidate the two of them, make it so that there's like one player with more impact than having even 2 of them, because having the 2 of them, it's not even like having a full squad player, because there's always something wrong. They're either injured or they don't fit or they don't whatever. So I actually don't think our problem is the proper DM or anything like that. That ESR and Vieira thing is something that needs to be looked at. Gunnar says Kudus is not an 8. Neither was Havertz, but we still bought him for that position. Kudus has played number 10 for Ajax before, so he wasn't just a winger. So you can say he's not a number 8, but what I would say is that he probably would have been more comfortable receiving the ball in the midfield position than Havertz would have at the beginning of the season. So 8, 10, whatever, let's take the numbers out. Had you would put him in the midfield instead of Havertz, we probably would have been in a better position because one of them actually can play in midfield. Devel says that's fair, but we would have had Eddie up front because Jesus' injuries mid-season. You could have played Trossard through the middle. Trossard played false 9 for us so many times, and I would have preferred him over Eddie, and he could have gotten us to the second half of the season just fine. So it's not just Jesus and Eddie. We had Trossard this whole time. So Trossard was sitting on the bench while we were forcing Martinelli into the side for no reason while he was playing poorly. So while you're forcing Martinelli, you could have also played Trossard, but Trossard and Mikel were beefing. That's why we saw Eddie. So we had an option. It was not just Havertz and Jesus. Like, you also have Trossard there. And his best position for us, funnily enough, is false nine. So yeah. Chris Frazier says the conversation goes deeper than last summer's sales and purchases. Most of the players everyone wants gone should have gone years ago. Our long-term planning needs adjusting, in my opinion. And that's, yeah, I agree with that for sure. So also the Ajax thing, which personally I think building relationships with clubs that have really talented players is really important. We know that we have a good relationship with Ajax based on how, like, the Timber deal was just so fucking nice. I mean, think about what a nightmare it was dealing with West Ham. West Ham was just the ops. Like, it was just awful. But the way that the Timber deal went was so nice, and they have very talented players that come from a similar ethos as Arsenal, like the way to play. And so having that connection, I think, is really useful, because when you want to buy from a different league, you want to make sure that the transition is going to be smooth, right? And so Team News and Ticks and Charles Watts also talked about what happened with the Timber deal, and that that was a good deal. And then with Hato, Arsenal did not try to convince Hato not to sign a new deal. So basically, the quote is 100% that the relationship will do us favors. We didn't try to convince him not to sign a new deal. We were already speaking to Ajax then, saying we will be interested if he signs a new contract. We'd like you to get a proper fee for the player. It's been friendly throughout. In a lot of situations like this, the club will be getting into Hato's ear, or his agents saying, like, don't sign the new contract. Whatever wages you're on, we'll pay you more. That's usually how it goes down. But from everything I've been told, it hasn't gone down like that. So yeah, I think, like, this is just, to me, this is a good thing. I think some people will say, be ruthless and be more, be more ruthless and get in his ear and make him not sign that new contract. But in the long term, having a good relationship with a club like Ajax would help us, is going to help us. And so Hato, I don't know what the deal is going to be for him. We haven't really heard much about what the fee would be. That's the one thing I haven't been able to find, is what fee Hato would go for. But anytime we're linked with a left back, this is the person that pretty much comes up, almost as if that's just what it's going to be. So maybe we're negotiating behind the scenes. Maybe it's something that we haven't quite revisited, but I can definitely see this coming to fruition. And like I said, having the relationship with Ajax is not a bad idea. Having a relationship with most of the good Dutch teams is a good idea too. So I like the sound of this. I think it's a good idea. I don't think we have enough relationships. I'm surprised we don't have any relationships in Brazil by now. So yeah, it's a good thing. I like the way that sounded. Gunnar Vision says, bring Quentin Timber. Arteta, I want to see something. Would you guys want Quentin Timber if we didn't have a Jurian already? Like, I think that's like a genuine question. I think the vibe of it all is more exciting than the actual thought of Quentin Timber. Now, he looks like a good player, but he would be right down at the bottom of my list of players that we should be looking to bring in. And if we did bring him in, I'd want him to come in as in accompaniment to another player in midfield. But I do think that people just want both Timbers, and I get that. But he would be right down at the bottom of my list. So yeah, OG says, I just love watching you talk football. Thank you. I'm glad you're here. Make sure you like and subscribe. Boxy says Kudus has played centrally for Ajax, and whatever that says. He actually played more central than, whether that's attacking mid or CM, than he has played out wide in his club career. And here's the thing, like, you may not listen to me, but if you did any research on Kudus when we were linked to him, you would know that he played in midfield. So I'm not just talking out of my ass here. We genuinely could have, that was conversations that we had so many times about Kudus, was that he can cover Saka at right wing, but he could actually play in midfield for us. And like I said, if we started off the season with Kudus in that position instead of Kai, you could make an argument that we would have been really good. So that's all I'm saying, is that like there were decisions that were made, and we live with the decisions that we make, and we make the best out of what we have. That doesn't mean that, like, just because Kai is working out doesn't mean that I feel like we still made the right decision. And Kudus feels like a big missed opportunity, and I would love for that not to happen this summer. So the sales have to come, and there's very obvious players that should be moved on. But I still see people saying we should keep said players, and I feel like that's very strange. Um, Let's see. Keenan says Kudus could definitely play left center mid in our system. He is actually perfect profile that we should be going for. Pep plays Foden and KDB in that position. Lloyd says, respect, Jess. Love your opinion on my comment. I agree, but I would love to see ESR and Vieira do well. But for the DM, I disagree. Rice needs to play as the 6 where he's more effective. Yeah, but I thought you were saying that we needed to fix the 6th position. So if Rice is playing in the 6, then are you saying that we need to find somebody a little bit further forward? I'm a little confused, but thanks for your comment anyway. But listen, I love hearing behind the scenes of what happened with transfers that didn't happen, and things like that, even transfers that actually did happen for us. So I thought that was really interesting, and hopefully the Ajax relationship helps us maybe even as soon as this summer with Hato, and we'll see how it all unfolds. There's 300 of you guys in here. Make sure you guys smash the likes. Like I was saying, we've spoken about the Kudus situation, and now I want to talk about Johan Bakayoko a little bit, because Arsenal are said to be interested in him. Enter the race, which is, I mean, we like literally we need a bingo card of like the like transfer jargon or transfer phrases that are just like you would only use for transfers. Like entering the race is always like a big one. So we can stamp that one. We got that one. Arsenal have entered the race for Johan Bakayoko from PSV. If you guys don't remember him, he is the winger he played on PSV. We played against them in the Champions League. I thought when we played them, obviously we played them with a weaker side. When we played them in the Netherlands, he was like their standout player. I thought he was really good on that day. And he's just a very talented winger. Like when you talk about, he has all the things. He has the power, the pace, the physicality to be able to play in the Premier League, but also the skill. Like he's very skillful. And so I think he has that well-roundedness to the game that a lot of us would like. And it's, to me, it's kind of always a good sign when Liverpool are also interested in an attacker, because I kind of trust like their scouting on attackers. Now somebody will be like, what about Nunez? And I'll be like, I actually like Nunez. So yeah, but in general, I think they pretty much get it spot on when it comes to attackers. Mane, Salah, Jota, Diaz, whatever. So they like him, and he looked good to my eye. And so I would like him, for Arsenal. Now, like I was saying, Bayern Munich and Liverpool are also interested. So you'd have competition there. But as like that other option off of the bench, absolutely, I'm taking that all day long. It's not Kudus. So he's not going to play in midfield, but he definitely gives you that like that physical, fast, tricky winger thing that all of us probably feel like we need. So this is coming from HBVL, which is, oh my gosh, let me translate the bio. The official account of Het Belang van Limburg. Every day we give you a selection of news. So some news outlet in the Netherlands. And so this is not the first time we've been linked to him, but this is the first time that it's come up this summer. So let's see how it goes. But I want to know what you guys think about, especially like right wing, because I still like, I want the right winger because we've always kind of been looking at right wingers, but also it'd be nice if we had somebody that can play on the left. But maybe Arteta is happy with the left wing options that he has. He likes having Martinelli and Trossard, and so he just wants to add something on the right. But yeah, like I like it. Like I like the right winger too. let's also just like, I'll just pull up his stats because I remember early on in the season where I was like, we should go get Bakayoko. You guys were, he doesn't score any goals. He doesn't score any goals. And I was like, all right, bro, he doesn't score any goals. You're right. You're right. I mean, 12 goals and 9 assists. That's not shabby, you know? And he had 1 goal and 5 assists in the Champions League. So altogether, that's, in the competitions that we care about, that's 13 goals and 14 assists. Not too bad. I know somebody's probably screaming, but it's the Eredivisie. I'm like, all right, well, y'all weren't crying when we were linked to Kudus, were you? And he was from the Eredivisie. So, I would take him. I would take him. I thought I saw enough. He absolutely like had Kivior on toast. I thought that was like one of the most embarrassing moments of the season. I actually saw it again not too long ago, that clip, and I was like, Kivior, you'll never want to see this back again. Lloyd says, I'd rather go Prem proven Olise or as a foreign league players always need to adapt. Look at Pepe, who never settled. Look at Kudus, he settled right away. Like, for every example of a player that took a while to adapt, there's an example of a player that didn't. Like, the Premier League proven thing, I understand it. I feel like when you're spending a lot of money, you should go Prem proven, but going Prem proven for a winger option that may not even be a starter and having to play the premium doesn't make sense for me. For like starting upgraded players, the midfielder that we bring in most definitely probably needs to be Prem proven, because we'll probably end up spending upwards of 60 million on that player, probably even 80 million. So that player cannot fail, has to be Prem proven. But somebody that's probably not going to start every single game, and you probably want to spend less. So getting somebody that needs a little bit of time to adapt actually makes a lot more sense. And if they don't need time to adapt, even better. But for every example of a player that needed time, I can give you an example of a player that didn't. So bring on Bakayoko. And Eze, he's not a winger. Like, Eze is not a winger. I don't know why people keep bringing him up in winger conversations. He's not. He's a number 10. And Olise, as good as he is, he's somebody that I feel like is not going to want to sit on the bench for Arsenal or have to compete with Saka. So there has to be like a ready-made position for him. And having him and Saka on one side is overloading one side. I feel like he's not gonna he would be better at like Manchester United, just because like they have a ready-made spot for him. They've already said Anthony is crap and they don't have anybody else. So he has like that ready-made spot. Like for Arsenal, he wouldn't have that. And so like again, spending to get Olise, you'd have to at least spend like what, 60 million for him. To get that for somebody that you're gonna have to figure out ways to put him in the starting 11, when Saka is always going to start, doesn't make sense to me. So if there's somewhere where you can get a lot of quality for less, like get like a lot of value for less, you probably want to go outside of the Premier League for this specific position. So yeah. Sam says Jess Trossard is a false nine. The only reason he's making the left wing work is that he is so good. I would bet that Trossard could get 20 goals a season up front. Dale says Bakayo and Bakayoko, it's written in the stars. I like that. Keenan says Bakayoko is better than Doku. He has more tools in his locker, much better crossing, set pieces, very quick decision making in the box. And again, that's another player that came from another league that didn't really need time to adapt. He didn't start right away, but when we first saw him playing, it wasn't like he was like using Pepe as a reason why we shouldn't buy from outside the league. To me, is not a good reason not to. He's a good reason not to be super crap at recruiting. Like, he was a one season wonder, already in his prime. There was a lot of red flags. The reason, like, he was a 30 million pound player that we ended up spending 72 million on because somebody is a crook, Raul, the brown paper bags under the table. So for me, he's actually a tail like against bad recruitment agents and signing one season wonders. He's not really like an advertisement for buying outside of the league. To me, he's not. So, and like Doku, like Kudus, these players, they came from other leagues and they're fine. Like, so I really don't see the problem. I really don't. Now, like I said, when we do the midfielder, where the fee is going to be way more, that's where you probably want to do Prem Proven, because that player you cannot get wrong. Mulo says, "What's wrong with Neto? He can play both sides, and we've been linked with him heavily every season or every window." The biggest problem with him, Mulo, is that he spends more time on the medical table than he does on the pitch. There's just no way that you can give Wolves 60 million for a player that is always injured, and I think, again, if you could, so you have somebody like Neto, you're gonna have to spend 60 million on that's always injured. That's a risk. He's gonna fit your system. Like, the one thing that about Pedro Neto is when you put him on the pitch for Arsenal, he's not gonna struggle to know how to play for us. Like, if he was not injury prone, he'd be perfect, and there'd be no conversation to be had. Go to Wolves and give him the money. But because he's injury prone and you're still gonna have to pay the highest market value for him, you should maybe look elsewhere and see if you can get somebody for, like, let's say 30, who's going to be available all the time, that with maybe a year can be just as talented, if not more. So yeah, I think, again, Pedro Neto makes sense only if he is always available, but his injury record is redonkulous for somebody that's only like 23 years old. Yeah, no. It's a hard no. It's a hard pass, because you're gonna have to play the premium for him. You're not getting a discount. For 30 million, you will take that Neto, but 60 million, look elsewhere. You look elsewhere, spend 30 million on somebody else, and use that additional 30 million that you would have spent on Pedro Neto to get something better in another position. Like, you know what I mean? John P says a lot of talent in Holland. I agree with that. Like, every time I watch like PSV or Feyenoord or whatever, it's like, damn, they got a lot of good players out here. I love the Timber signing. So I would love for us to have good relationships with all of the top Eredivisie teams, if I'm honest. I think they play the right way. I think they have a lot of talent. And I know people are like, well, those players, they don't adapt to the league well. But listen, if you get them from the right places, I think they will. There's 300 of you guys in here. Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel. Samuel says Sky Sports just reported that Sesko is an Arsenal target. We're going to get into that in just a second, because there is some confusion around whether or not Sesko is the top target or not. So we'll get into that. So stick around. Yeah, I'm saving the best for last to make sure you guys stay the whole time, because listen, it's Friday. You ain't got no job and you ain't got shit to do. Where's that from? If you guys know where that's from, you guys are my best friend. Foxy says, from April 2021, Neto has been injured for 553 days. Yeah, for me, it's a hard no. It's a hard pass. And I see everything that you guys see. He'd be perfect if it wasn't for that injury. Gunnar says Pedro Neto is one injury away from losing his pace. And if he loses his pace, do we actually want him? It's hard to say no to players that are talented. And like, even I saw a report the other day that Manchester City were still interested in Neto, and it made me be like, well, do they know something we don't know? But I was like, it's all right. Like, it really is okay. Like, there are a lot of talented forwards that we can look at. They may not feel as perfect as Neto would for us, but somebody like a Bakayoko would definitely do the job. Like, so I'm sorry, the way he cooked us, I was like, that's what I need. That's what I need. I love a player that is confident going 1v1. He also was tracking back. He was working hard defensively. I was like, this screams Arteta player to me, but listen, that's just me. Caleb says, Jess, I'm loving these daily lives. Thank you. I told you we get back. I told you we get back. We have more coming as well. I've been talking to a company about updating the software so we can get even more going for you guys. Like, the camera's back. Like, we're cooking. You guys know, I'm always gonna come back at some point. Blank Face Killer says, smoke it. Exactly. Dude says, I am praying to the universe that we don't get Osimhen. I love that. Because I'm hoping so too. Blaze says, just forget about Friday movie. I will never forget. Like, when I talk about sidebar, one thing about me is I watch Friday every year, multiple times a year, and sit there and recite the lines from beginning to end. I love that movie. It is my everything. Like, seriously, if you know me, you know that I will watch Friday. Like, if you guys are like, let's do a Friday watch along. Oh, I have that set up in a minute. Like, I love that movie so much. John P says, have you seen Desire? Though just him or Bakayoko would be brilliant. Listen, I know Diluted did a show or had like a little clip go out about him, and he was saying he was like a world-class talent that we can't miss out on. He also looks outrageously good. Definitely stardust all around the kid. Like, you can just feel like he has it. Will we actually go for him? I don't know, so, but I would take Bakayoko. I would take him too, just knowing that if we do get a winger and it's not like a star player, spending about 30 million on that player will not tank us, because we have Martinelli and Saka that will most likely be starting. It's fine. Would I prefer us to go for like a star if they were available? Yes. Like I've always said, if Rodrigo is available, you drop everything to make that happen. But I like a flexible transfer strategy as well. One that it's like, okay, well, if there's nobody special out there that we want to spend top dollar on for the wing position, let's go get somebody that's younger, that's like has the ability to become a world-class talent with some good coaching, and use the money that we would have spent on a star and like really recruit in a different position and give more to that position. I like a flexible transfer strategy, because I feel like when you're too strict, then you miss out on opportunities, for other things. So I'm okay with the younger winger prospect, but then I would expect the money that we would have spent on a star to be moved somewhere else to make sure we get the best somewhere else. I'm expecting the midfield signing to be pretty expensive, to be honest. Like that's my expectation. I think that would be our only massive signing. So yeah. Tawana says, right now I am tired of people talking about cover for Saka. I want someone who can challenge him in the first team. So speaking of the first team, we need to talk about somebody that has got to be he has to be integrated into the first team, and that's Ethan Nwaneri. I'm going to stand on it 10 toes down. I don't think he needs a loan. I think he's the perfect prototype for somebody that can come into the first team and get valuable minutes. I think if you gave him some of the minutes that ESR has gotten and Fabio Vieira has gotten, and give him even maybe a little bit more minutes, he would do more with it than maybe they have. And I think it's about time that we make a little bit of room for him. Now, we had such long conversations about the youth and whether or not it was important to get them in this team. Like, we have the youngest squad in the league. We have one of the youngest squads in the league. Yeah, but that's not the same as integrating youth, is it? It's like, I hate, like, that is like one of my pet peeves. You guys know this about me, is that when we're having conversations, I want to have honest conversations. I don't want bullshit. Like, when people were upset that MLS and Nwaneri didn't get those minutes against Lens and PSV, I understood. I thought some people were going too hard. I thought some people were using it as a stick to beat Mikel with, because they were mad that we weren't playing well at that time, because it was around the period where we weren't playing that good. But I do think that there's a point to it, that we don't integrate from the academy. But Saka was already there. Saka was already there. Like, is it the most important thing? No, but integrating people like Ethan or MLS or whatever saves you money, because you can use those players as squad players, but also they can make you money in the future. And in the case of Ethan, which it really could be the case, he could end up being somebody that's in the actual starting 11 or in the first team for a long period of time. So it is important. Just because it's not the most important thing right now, we need to win the title. That's the most important thing. But that doesn't mean it's not something to talk about. And just to completely dismiss it as Arsenal fans being ridiculous, I thought was just like, okay, like, let's be fucking for real. Like, Cedric minutes is not more important than whatever. It just was never. Like, I'm so glad Cedric got those 5 fucking minutes. Like, let's be serious, So I think there's also a point being made by Mikel that he doesn't rate Lino Sousa and Rule Walters, which is why both of them are off. But Ethan, they made a big point to give him a big contract, and there have been reports of him being integrated. The only way that can happen is if we move ESR on and Reece Nelson, I feel, because he should be taking the minutes that they have. Those are the minutes that he should be having. Whatever little minutes that they were getting, those are the minutes that he should fill. And so they both should be moved on to give him some space. Now, I want to hear your guys' opinions, but I also want to hear your guys' opinions on this damn goal, because the way it moved me.
Accepts the needlessly risky pass from the Italians.
I know it's under 17, but I don't care.
Found support at just the
So
right
nice.
time.
Instinctual, just boom.
That is
Another angle of it.
midfielder as well. Mikey Moore on his own. Remains on his own. Now the support arrives. It's a brilliant goal from England.
So yeah, he's just, yeah, I just feel like, and because I've been trying to read a little bit more on him for people that actually like follow the youth a little bit more in England. He is very highly rated in his age group. He's the most highly rated in his age group, one of them. And so I'm not saying that he has to start. And that's another thing, is that when you start to have these conversations, people will be like, you just want to rush them into the 11 and give them more responsibility than they deserve. That's not what we're saying either. I don't think people are saying that he should just walk in and start. But the minutes that Reece Nelson got in the cups, against Luton or whatever, the minutes that, ESR got against Nottingham Forest or whatever, those could go to Ethan. And not only will you have gotten a fee for ESR and Reece Nelson, which the longer we keep them, the smaller that fee is going to get, but you've opened up an opportunity for somebody to either become another player that you sell on for a decent fee, or somebody that could break through like Saka. And so it is important for a club like Arsenal, who's not owned by a nation state, to utilize their academy to the best of their ability. That doesn't mean when you say that they should be getting minutes or they should be integrated, that you feel like they should be starting over the main players. And that's what is annoying about the conversation, is that there's no nuance to it. And because people don't want to hear any potential negativity around a manager that's only been managing for 4 years, the likelihood of Mikel being perfect at his job is very unlikely. So there is going to be criticism or bumps in the road or learning curves. And I think one of the places where he could be a little bit better is integrating people a little bit sooner and moving people on a little bit sooner. Stop keeping people just for the sake of it, and trust some of the academy players or players that you guys see for the future with a little minute here or there. And I think this is a good opportunity to do it, because Ethan is probably the first player that I've seen that looks like he's ready. We saw him play like 5 little seconds against Nuremberg in preseason last season. And I know everybody was just like, oh my gosh, it was amazing. It wasn't shit. It really wasn't. But he didn't look uncomfortable, just like he didn't look uncomfortable against Brentford last season. And then he got a couple of minutes this season too. You guys will remind me when it was, but he got some minutes against someone. And so, yeah, I think he's definitely got it, right? And so it's not like it has to be the main thing that we do, but I would love to see him get the minutes that Reece Nelson and ESR were getting and see how it goes. One thing I like about him is that he seems like he can play on the wing, and he can also play in the central midfield. He looks very comfortable on the ball. And so, yeah, against West Ham. That's when it was. It was against West Ham. So it wasn't a lot to see. Like, he didn't do anything spectacular, but he also didn't look out of place. And so I think just even that little gesture was Arteta saying that this is going to be the one. It wasn't Real Walters. It wasn't Lino Sousa. It's not going to be Patino. It's going to be Ethan. And hopefully we'll see it next season. Samuel says, we're about to lose Cozy or Dewberry. If we don't give time for Ethan, we will lose him too. And that's the thing, is I think they're pretty comfortable with if they don't think they're good enough, we just will never see them, and it'll just be what it is. But I do feel like that little gesture with Ethan was kind of like this is the one. And so it may not be Cozy or Dewberry. It may not be the other ones that have already left. You know what I mean? Maybe they only feel like Ethan is good enough. And I do kind of feel like there's usually just one in a group. There's one Saka, there's one Ashley Cole, there's one Jack. There'll be a sprinkle here or there of the oddity, the Willock would stay around for a little while, Ainsley would stay around, fill in squad roles, but for the most part, there's one diamond. There's one jewel in the crown. It's probably Ethan, but maybe they will find a spot for Cozy or Dewberry. But if they keep Ethan, I feel like he will play on the wing and will also maybe play a little bit midfield, and that would block Cozier Dewberry anyway. So maybe this is the opportunity to move him on and let him go have a career. But I know people think that he's the next little Saka, so I don't know. But I think Ethan Nwaneri is the one. I think he's the one. From everything I've read, he's the most talented. From people outside of Arsenal, inside of Arsenal, people feel that way. If your eye tests tell you he's the best one. So it probably is just him. And maybe you get a little, like the fact that Arteta brought, what was that child's name? There is, instead of bringing Cozier Dewberry, he brought somebody else from the under 21s to play in that Brentford game, and he doesn't even play right wing. I think is interesting. You know, I was like, why not Cozier Dewberry? He's the natural one to play there. So it was very interesting. But I think he's probably the one. Sam says, is Nwaneri still in high school? He must be a superstar there. Boy says Odegaard wanted to give him the ball and see him do things against West Ham. Samuel says, we're about to, oh yeah, I already read that one. Jagoon says, Nwaneri is the only one Arteta deems worthy. And actions speak louder than words. I think Arteta will say a lot about people that he likes. He'll say he believes ESR is a part of the project. He really likes Ramsdale. He really likes this person. But in the end of the day, if they're not getting playing time, that is kind of like an action, like that's actually saying how he feels, I think, and giving Nwaneri the only minutes that an under 21 or under 21 player has gotten in the Premier League to him, I think speaks volumes about what he thinks about the player. He also was desperate to make sure that they played him against Brentford to make sure that he signed the contract, because Chelsea and Man City also wanted him. So yeah, it's important. Keenan says, what about Joe Bellingham? He would kill it at left 8. I saw that Crystal Palace are interested in him. So he'll probably end up, if he ends up somewhere, it probably won't be at like a top team. He'll probably be like one of the other teams. But Crystal Palace is going to end up being a good landing place for a lot of people. So, you know, if he goes there, that might be the best place for him. Foxy says, people will mention Nwaneri for his goal, but I was more impressed with his overall play. I do think that, like, in general, he has like that close control and that like the technical level of a player that you would expect coming through Hale End. Because we all are snobs when it comes down to it. We want to see that Jack Wilshere, Cesc Fabregas type technical quality. I feel like he definitely comes with that. And so, yeah, I'm very interested. I'm very interested in seeing how we use him next season. Blaze says senior players forced Arteta to give Nwaneri game time against West Ham, and Odegaard always gave him the ball to do something. Keenan says City know the way. It's time to start selling these kids for 20 million and slapping a buyback clause on them. Could have sold Hutchinson for 10 million instead of letting him go. Chris Fraser says Ethan going to be a star. I have no doubt. Special talent for sure. Joe says if we keep Cozier Dewberry, then they have to let go of Reece Nelson. I think you could let go of Reece Nelson and ESR and let Ethan take those minutes, genuinely. And I think you only really are going to have space to bring in one and give them the adequate amount of time that makes it worth them actually being in the first team instead of being on loan. And that's why I say instead of having Cozier Dewberry and Ethan, it might be best to just only have Ethan, let him eat up all those minutes, make it really worth his time being there instead of wasting both kids' times and then losing both of them. So I feel like you kind of, have to pick and choose, but that's just my opinion. Like maybe you can keep both and give them both, adequate amount of time. Jagoon says exactly, Jess. Arteta is a liar. Watch what he does and not what he says. And Samuel says, where's Balogun, guys? Balogun. If you see what he did at Monaco, which is absolutely nothing, you'd be happy to cash in on some of these guys. It won't hurt us. Like, how many players have we actually let go from the academy that we've really regretted over the years? Like maybe one, maybe two. The majority of them leave, and it makes sense why they were never in the first team or why they were never really breaking through. So I don't really think that losing like Cozier Dewberry or Will Walters or Lino Sousa will come back and bite us or will be like, anything. Ethan, though, I do think he'll be the one that will be like, fuck, we should have given him more time. Boy says, I don't think wanting to see academy produce players is snobby. Not everyone has to be a technician. I think Arsenal fans, especially Emirates era Arsenal fans, are quite snobby when it comes to the types of players that we like to see in midfield or up front. I think we do in general really like the aesthetics of it all. So that's what I was saying. I think the snob in the Arsenal fans is going to aesthetically like what they see from Ethan because he has that close control. He is very technical. He's nice to watch on the ball. That's all I was saying. Not that wanting academy players produced is snobby. And when I'm saying snobby, I'm saying it in like a tongue-in-cheek way. Like I get like being an Arsenal fan, you like the Arsenal way, the right way to play. So naturally you have your nose up a little bit and you want that technical vibe, you know. So that's all I was saying. Keenan says Fabio Vieira, ESR, and Reece Nelson all need to go to make space for incomings. I know it hurts, but if we sign Sesko and Bakayoko, we need to sell Jesus as well. And Blaze says, from what I've heard, Balogun even struggles in the USA team. Jess can confirm. For somebody that they were really like desperate to get in, he really hasn't solidified the spot the way that I think people intended him to. So much so that they're still looking at Haji Wright as potentially being the starting striker in the Copa America, as well as Ricardo Pepi, who plays for PSV. So no, he really hasn't been all that people thought he was going to be. And so I'm happy we got the 30 million for him. Speaking of strikers, I do want to get into the is Sesko the number one option? So make sure you guys are liking the video, subscribing to the channel, because we're going to pivot away from academy talk and into striker talk for the first team. But before that, I do want to go into just the headlines just one more time, just so you guys just know everything that's going on. Arsenal are interested in Victor Osimhen. That's coming from DiMarzio. Zubimindi has ruled out an option of moving to Arsenal. He's decided to stay in Spain. Arsenal's physio Jordan Rees is set to join Manchester United. That's coming from John Cross. And Bayern Munich are monitoring the developments related to Alexander Zinchenko with Arsenal. So those are kind of like the headlines. And thank you to everybody again who joined the Classic Watch Along, where we watched the FA Cup final from 2020. It was a lot of fun. We'll vote for the next one on Monday, and we will do another one on Thursday. So make sure you guys are there for the Monday show so you can vote on what you want to watch. And then you also make sure you join for the Classic Watch Along, because it was a lot of fun and it was just like super chill. I literally had popcorn and a glass of wine. Like, it was very enjoyable content. So the striker situation. So yesterday we talked about Sesko a lot. And here's my thing, is that it came from the information and all the hype came from John Cross and one other person, I think Gary Jacobs, or Jacob Gary, or whatever his name is. And it wasn't really denied by anybody that we would consider like this is the stamp, like Ornstein, right? Ornstein doesn't really tweet that much, but when he tweets, it's pretty much good as gold, right? So he didn't actually come out and refute it or anything like that, or deny it. Neither did Fabrizio Romano. Nobody, because afterwards, if like somebody says something and their information is different, they'll put their information out there. So nobody really denied it or said like, oh, the deal isn't really happening, or that's not correct information. Our store looking at boop, boop, boop. But both of them were noticeably quiet on it. There is something going on with the Sesko thing. I am like 100% sure of it. Nobody's really talking about it. They're not really talking about it. They've mentioned us being interested in him, Manchester United and Chelsea being interested in him, but it was noticeably quiet after such a big frenzy around Sesko yesterday from Arsenal fans. So something is going on with it. Now, is he actually the number one choice? That's what's come to the forefront today, because DiMarzio was on Sky Sports Italy saying that, or basically like the information came from DiMarzio saying that he expects Arsenal to make a move for either Benjamin Sesko or Victor Osimhen in the summer window. Then Mo Arsenal 86, who has been in the know, like I said, not quite as maybe reliable as Team News and Ticks, but pretty reliable over the last year or so, said that Sesko is not the number one choice. He's not the number one choice. And he's seen as a backup if they cannot get who they really want. And I'm just like, what the hell is going on here? Because also intertwined with that is the report that had come out from DiMarzio a couple of days ago that Chelsea were trying to negotiate a swap for Lukaku to go to Napoli and Osimhen to go to Chelsea. Something is going on. Somebody is getting Osimhen and somebody is getting Sesko. That's all I know. Something is really going on with this. And what Mo Arsenal did say was that I was digging a little bit more because I was like, okay, well, if he's not the number one, then who's the number one choice? He said Isak. Isak is the number one choice. But John Cross and Jacob Gary were saying that Arsenal were ready to do a deal for Sesko. But now DiMarzio is saying Arsenal are trying to get Osimhen. But that the other day, Chelsea was trying to get Osimhen. So on the Isak thing, it's difficult to do the deal for Isak because it's most likely that he'll sign a new deal. And they also don't want to facilitate a sale. So what's going on? Now, the reason why I feel like this is really interesting is because within the next couple of days, what I think will happen is one of Ornstein or Fabrizio Romano will come out with something big regarding Sesko, and that'll give us a clearer idea of if it's Arsenal or if it's Chelsea. I think it's really just between the two of us. I think Manchester United need to and will go for a more established striker, which is what they should do. They have Højlund already. It makes zero sense for them to buy Sesko. They probably just are looking at him and thinking, oh, he looks better than Højlund. We should get him too, but it doesn't make sense. But Chelsea and Arsenal are, I think, the main options for Sesko right now. And so Osimhen is out there in the ether looking for a move. He could, honestly, he should just go to PSG. But Kevin Skelia is going there, so he won't go there too. So the Premier League is probably looking like a good place for him to land. He's always been a Chelsea boy, so why not just go there? I don't know, but I don't know. I genuinely don't know. Arsenal could be interested in Osimhen, but I just cannot see him at Arsenal for some reason. I can't. So I don't want us to wait too long looking at Isak when he's not available because it's giving Caicedo in January when Brighton didn't want to sell. And they basically had to put out a cease and desist. If you don't stop, we will never do business with you again. So for me, it's if Isak is not really available and you know that, don't waste time on him. If you don't want Osimhen and you know that, don't waste time on him. Get Sesko. I think that's the best option for us in the situation that we're in, knowing that we want to go big in midfield, knowing that you can't get Isak, Sesko is the next best option. But if we fuck around with Newcastle, trying to force them into letting us have a player that we know is not really for sale, in the midst of all that, we will lose out on other targets. So I don't know what Arsenal are doing, but this whole thing, something is going on. There's some sort of game being played. Either Chelsea really do want Osimhen and they're playing games with Napoli, and because Fabrizio Romano is their mouthpiece. I don't care what anybody says. We all know the deal with Fabrizio. The fact that he keeps reiterating that Chelsea are not negotiating for Osimhen makes me think more that they want him, but they can't figure out a way to get him without having to actually pay. So they want him. Probably the backup option is Sesko. We want Isak, but the backup option is Sesko. Somebody is going to end up with Sesko, and it kind of needs to be us. Because if we don't end up with Sesko, who are we going to get? Brian Bobbery? Who are we going to get? So Arsenal, figure out what you're doing. And they probably do. They're probably sitting around we really know what we're doing. But genuinely, what's going on? What's going on? Yeah, what's happening? Boy says Osimhen doesn't want that Chelsea disaster. They are about to implode in a big way. Samuel says 45 million is a bargain. There isn't a lot of strikers out there. And that's the real tea, is that there's not a lot of strikers out there. So we have to make sure that we don't miss out on the best option. I think whoever gets Sesko is getting the most value for money and a lot of upside, and we can't afford to miss out on that if Isak is not really available. The only other player that makes sense to me is Isak if he were available, and he's not. He's not available. Newcastle will make sure that they sell Bruno Guimaraes to Manchester City before they sell Isak to us. Like, there's no reason to even wait around to see if we can buy Isak. It's not happening. It's not happening. So go get Sesko, you know? Foxy's even saying it. Isak is going nowhere. He loves the tune. Well, he'll leave eventually. He don't love the tune that much, but he'll stay at least another year. Bermy says the transfer window is always full of insinuations about potential targets, and we will likely not know for sure until the deals are done. Plus, Arteta tends to surprise us. We have at least one surprise. We know that. That's going to come out of nowhere, like the Kai thing. Also, it's still like 14 days before the actual window opens. We know that you can do stuff before, but there's also the summer tournaments, and so the window probably won't really get jamming until players are out of the Euros / Copa America. So it's a tough one. It's a tough one to gauge right now because so much can change. But Arsenal have, according to Edu, 180 pages of information on each player, and they've always known what they wanted to do since January. Well, then, bruh, at least, can you send me a little note so I can know what's going on? Because I'm out of the loop. I don't know what's going on. But that's why yesterday, like, even though we were talking about Sesko and it was like, yeah, we probably do have interest, I was like, I'm not getting too excited because this just sounds too easy. Like, there has to be some bullshit attached to it. And I think the bullshit with Sesko, if we firm up our interest, will end up being Chelsea also wanting to get involved. And them being involved will probably mostly mean that the price will go up and the drama will last longer and stuff like that. So there's that. Bailey says Edu is still reading that 80-page dossier. Gaming Sim says UCL football would turn anyone's head. Isak probably got one more season with the Geordies. Boy says agree with Xerxes needing to be a high priority option. He was also mentioned with, I think, Mo Arsenal, saying that Isak was the number one option, Sesko was the backup, and Xerxes was also well liked. So yeah, that's definitely somebody that we're probably looking at. Saida says Vieira was a surprise as well, come out of nowhere. Keenan says Brian Bobbery looks like a professional wrestler that woke up one day in a parallel universe as a footballer. Neil says getting a Sesko leaves the opportunity for the season after next. If Newcastle disappoint, we will be there. Boy says Chelsea can't afford. They must be trying to swap player swaps. I think that's the only reason why they won't get Osimhen really is because they'll pay whatever wages. We know that they'll pay whatever wages they need to pay in order to get him. I think the problem is that they're trying to do this Lukaku thing. And the thing is like when you have a mouthpiece, the mouthpiece is going to say what they want, what the club wants people to know. Like if they're unsuccessful in trying to coerce Napoli into taking Lukaku and getting Osimhen to go the other way, if it's unsuccessful, they're going to tell somebody like Fabrizio Romano to say that they were never interested in doing that. You're just briefing the media. I think that's my favorite part of the transfers is the drama attached to it. I love the mouthpieces. I love the tomfoolery. I love the shenanigans. I love the tea. And the tea is that Fabrizio is going to say whatever Chelsea wants them to have out there. And the message is they're not negotiating, but they definitely offered it. They 100% offered it, and that's why DiMarzio said it, but it was unsuccessful. Chelsea must not have the money to buy Osimhen because they will give the wages, but they probably don't have enough for the release clause or whatever they're asking. So they're going to try to do something different. And that's where Sesko will probably end up being more attractive to them. But are we actually going to try to go get Osimhen? I don't know. Joe says Xerxes should be option 1, Sesko option 2. And hell, I'd give Bareth a chance if he signs a new deal. Why Xerxes number 1 and Sesko number 2? I guess that would be my question is for people that really like Xerxes. He doesn't excel in goal scoring or anything in terms like him and like Sesko is a better goal scorer based on this season, and Xerxes was like a starter. Or like let's look at it. Let's look at it. Xerxes scored 11 goals and had 4 assists in 34 matches, and he was a starter for Bologna. And Sesko in 31 matches, not starter, has more goals. So he's not really a better goal scorer. What is he? He's probably faster, but they're both tall. I think Xerxes is more of like, he's not really like the physical presence that's going to get up and score goals with his head, but has the physical, like he's 6'4". He's probably a better like dribbler and maybe a better footballer than Sesko, but he's probably not a better striker. So like, what are we looking for? Because we have good footballers that play center forward for us. We need to get somebody that scores goals. That's a natural goal scorer. That would be my only ding against Xerxes, is that I can see him being a good footballer, but is he a 20 goal per season striker? I don't know, but I feel like Sesko definitely has that quality. He's a true goal scorer. So for people that really want Xerxes or like Xerxes more than Sesko, is it just the fact that one is a better footballer? And if that's the case, is that actually what we need? Because we have good footballers that play number 9 for us now. So yeah, I'm not saying he's exactly like Jesus, but I am saying that like we need something different than what we have. And it was funny because people were saying that Sesko and Kai are very similar, and they are nothing alike at all. So we know we need something different by the fact that people don't want Sesko because they're under the illusion that they're the same. But actually, the person that's more different to Kai is Sesko. Sesko is more different to Kai than Xerxes. But that's what I see just from my initial assessment of the two players, like not watching them day in, day out, but seeing enough of them to be like, okay, Xerxes, rapid, good technically, really good link up, still not really a great goal scorer. Sesko, definitely a goal scorer, traditional number 9, great ball striking, probably not as good of a footballer as Xerxes, but what do Arsenal need? We need a goal scorer more than anything. Joe says, Sesko gives me Danny Welbeck vibes. Xerxes is technically better, and Sesko's pace is useless against a low block. Neil says Sesko has that physicality. Sesko can win headers and has a little burst. He does have a little burst. Samuel says they better not steal our targets. Well, that's what happens when you're indecision. The decisions are made for you. And like Edu is probably sitting back. If he's even watching this, he's probably like, this child don't have a clue. I got it covered. I don't know what she's talking about. But from my standpoint, I'm looking at it like, I hope you guys have it all together, because child, I don't know what's going on. I really don't, because yesterday it was Sesko full on, like that's what we're going for, and now I'm hearing Osimhen's and Isak's again, and Osimhen and Isak just feel like one is unobtainable and the other one, there's the name is there, but like, are we actually going to spend the 100 million when we know we have to get a midfielder and that midfielder is going to be expensive? So I don't know. There's a lot going. I don't know. Like, Nuances of Fate says, yep, if you're indecisive, the decision gets made for you. Gani says, I just want a dog up front. Period. Like, that's all I'm saying, is that, like, do we need another really good all-around footballer up front? Or do we need a dog that's going to put the ball in the back of the net? We need somebody that's going to put the ball in the back of the net. Period. Xerxes does not give me that vibe. He doesn't. But Sesko, he gives me that vibe, so yeah. Caesar says, now I still think Sesko is the next big complete striker, needs coaching. That's it. Caesar says Xerxes moves better, but in a system that demands way more rotation than RB. Xerxes pivots better, and as you say, dribbles better, makes him turn faster and create advantage. Sesko is the better striker, and so maybe it's just the difference between one of them is better outside of the box and the other one is better inside the box. Xerxes, I can see which, like, maybe if you combine the two of them, you would probably get Isak. Like, Xerxes gives you what Isak does outside the box, and Sesko gives you what Isak can kind of do inside the box. I still think Isak needs to work on his heading, but He's a good striker of the ball. He has a nose for goal. Like, he actually wants to score. The two of them together probably just about makes an Isak, but them separately, you have to pick or choose. And I feel like I'm still picking the player that I know when they get inside the box, they know what they're doing. Where when Xerxes, he just doesn't strike me as somebody that's going to give you the 20 goals per season. That's going to like really change what we're trying to do. He'll give you more of a transitional threat. He's good at linking play, but we really just like the way that we play. At some point in the game, when we're struggling to score, we need to be able to knock it into anywhere in the box, and you need to find a way to put it in the back of the net. That's what we're looking for. That's what I'm looking for. So yeah. And again, that Sesko and Xerxes combining together to make Isak kind of thing. That's why we know Newcastle are not going to sell him, because Isak was kind of a missed opportunity for Arsenal, and Newcastle did a really good job to bring him in, because you're going to find it really difficult to find a striker that can run the channels, that's a good transitional threat, that's good technically, that can do a bit of link up, and that can actually score 20 goals per season. It's very difficult to find. It's a very expensive player. The striker market is not the best. So I know Isak is not going anywhere for that particular reason. And that's kind of like just our loss. Like, there's nothing you can do about it. So yeah, Chris says exactly. Sesko might be our dog, just needs to hang out with Win a bit. Xerxes is more of a facilitator like Jesus. Boy says Xerxes doesn't have to score goals, just make it easier for other players to score goals. I disagree. We have enough players that their best qualities are helping other people score goals, and we still feel like we need more goals, or we need to have somebody that's actually going to score in the moments that matter. And so I completely disagree with this. Trossard makes people better. Jesus makes people better. Havertz makes people better, makes it easier for other people around him to score, facilitates, drops in, does the hard work. We need somebody that's going to put the ball in the back of the net. We already have enough of those types of players. Nostradamus says Osimhen figure is like 100 million, I think. Napoli didn't get Europe in any sense. How about Dusan Vlahovic? Child, I'm not trying to go back to 2022. Joe says, laugh out loud, your Sesko plus Xerxes equals Isak comment was exactly what I was thinking. Foxy says, if Arsenal really want Isak, they need to step up and pay 200 million asking price. Laugh out loud. And the laughing out loud is exactly what I'm thinking, because we're not paying that, and you know that too. So have fun with Isak. Neil says Sesko has a half turn. I like a striker that can use his body and roll a defender. Burmy says, I like Isak for striker winger combo, but I feel like his transfer will cost prohibitive. So Sesko for me. Yeah, I mean, he's just a missed opportunity. Like, and I feel similar with Sesko too, because even though he's not, maybe doesn't have all the things that Isak has, he has the ability to still be the most complete number 9, or one of the most complete number 9s in Europe. So to not get him, I think, is a missed opportunity if whatever you're looking at is unobtainable, or maybe not that great of an option, or whatever. So yeah, I feel like Arsenal need to know what they're going to do. Edu says they know what they're going to do, so fair enough. But all these different reports, like, watch, it's not even any of them, and we end up with something completely different. But if you want Sesko, just get him. If you want, Osimhen, get him, I guess, but the indecision, if there is any, will stop us from getting anybody good. And several teams are looking for strikers, and we can't be the one that doesn't get our top target, whoever that is. Samuel says Isak is injury prone. Sorry, we need a guy who's always available. Brian, thank you so much for your super chat. Says the striker market is crazy, because if your good teams have to overpay. So I think the right move would be to get one before they come great. I mean, like, if you just deep it for a second, your options, if you want a proven striker, is Osimhen. That's it. And maybe Gyökeres too. So let's say you have Gyökeres and you have Osimhen. Both of those players have red flags. Like, they really do. Like, they're each of them, like, Osimhen is going to cost you around 100 million. and Gyökeres is going to cost 68 million. Personally, even between the two of them, I still probably pick Gyökeres, as funny as that may sound, considering one has more the name and the star and the other one is just playing at Sporting. But one has a horrendous injury record, and that is really will always stay in the back of my mind when we're going to spend a lot of money, because then it's like, okay, so what are we doing here? We know we're going to buy somebody that's going to be unavailable for a certain amount of time. And he goes through patches of being really clinical and not really clinical too. Like, Osimhen is not perfect. He has the name, and like, you're going to get the, oh my God, they signed Osimhen, but is he really all that? I don't know. But he's the most like done option that you have on the market. You have Gyökeres as well, who people would say have red flags because he doesn't play in a top 5 league. Is he really that good? He's older. Why didn't he move to a better team sooner? Like, blah, blah, blah. And then you have like Tony. None of those options are particularly appetizing to me in the summer. Like, Gyökeres probably still stands out as the best option. But if you put Gyökeres against Sesko, and like, I'm like, okay, Sesko could be just as good as Gyökeres, if not better and more complete, for less money if we give him the coaching that he needs. I'd probably veer towards that, just in the situation that we're in. Especially because we found that Kai can play number 9 to a certain level. It makes the need for making these like very expensive option, like taking on one of these really expensive options with red flags, less needed. Like, we don't actually need to do that. So Sesko just seems like the better bet, but some people will still veer towards Osimhen for the name. And you're going to get the, we bought the big striker name, but I'm still looking at injuries. And I'm just like, I don't know about all that. I really don't. Lloyd says, and Watkins, I just don't think that Aston Villa are really going to sell him. I just can't see it. Like, technically he would be, like, once you're fighting against another team that's a top 4 team, I think it makes it even more difficult, because Aston Villa are never going to sell us anybody. I really don't think Aston Villa will ever sell us anybody. I think just Emery being there, there's just going to be like a blockage there. I just don't see it. Ollie Watkins is a starter there. He's comfortable. They just got to Champions League. They do have to sell, but I feel like if they do sell anybody, bringing Ross Barkley in, to me, means that they'll be more open to selling a midfielder than their number 1 striker that was like their player of the season. So Watkins, to me, is not really available. We'll see. Liverpool are said to be interested in him, but I just can't see it. Like, I literally cannot see him moving team. I just can't. So yeah. Caesar says Isak looks similar to Thierry Henry. Makes me think how he could perform against consistent low blocks and block play. Strong, but not strong enough. Tall, but doesn't affect the aerials enough. Sesko as well, but potential. I feel like Sesko has more of the ability to chuck it into the box and just make something happen. Like, something that, like, City always have the option to, when they're not breaking down a low block and when they don't have the openness of the game, to just kind of get it in the box, and Holland will get a head on it or get a toe on it or just do something or make the opposition so nervous that they make a mistake. We don't actually have that. We still have to be almost perfect to score a goal. With like Isak, he doesn't really offer as much of the box presence, but he offers something for sure. I like that about Sesko. Now, some people are saying we need a lot of pace. I still think Sesko offers more of like a transitional threat than any of the strikers that we have right now. So nobody really has all the things that I feel like we need. Because even if you do need the pace, the transitional threat that you would get from like a Xerxes, you're still going to be missing the ability to just kick it into the box and just have somebody just nick it into the goal. So yeah, for me, I really do think that like Sesko is the better option, but that's just me. Buki says Benjamin Sesko, because we just got to save the money for the for other position. Artie says, I don't think Isak really fits Arteta really. I think what he fits is knowing that he can play out wide too. I think Arteta wants somebody that he can stick on the wing too and kind of pull like a little Aubameyang with him. Like, I think that's what he likes about him. and that he's, he's a 20 goal per season striker. He's Premier League proven. He hits all of those notes. So I can see where Arsenal are interested. Hold on, my dad's texting me. Sick. Okay. Keenan says, if we can improve Sesko's heading and physicality, he has the potential to become generational. And Alicia Thought says, we need to be sensible in the transfer window, get players that would instantly improve our team and the squad in total. With this PRS thing, we can't splash 300 million this window. I agree. And I think we went really big last window. And having a really good window doesn't always mean you just spent the most. I think it's about getting the most impact for with the money that you have. And so we know we can get a lot of impact. Like Sesko would have a massive impact because you would have a complete, or a potentially elite, world-class level complete striker that you just needed to develop a little bit for 45 million, which is significantly less than what you have to pay for him once he actually becomes that. Bakayoko, I think, would be good, quality for the money. This would be like a 30 million pound or something like that. And he would have a good impact because he would allow for Saka to rest. So you can have massive impact without having to spend like an arm and a leg on everything. I'm just really interested. This is the first window in 2 years where we don't know who our main target is. First one. That's crazy. Jesus, we knew from before the season ended that that's who we're going to get for number 9. We knew before the season ended we were going to get Declan Rice, or that's who we're going to go after. This is the first summer in 2 seasons where we don't actually know what we're going to do. And I think that's what makes it really interesting, is that one day we could just wake up and the Bamba is there and it's not something that we were expecting. So yeah. Keenan says, Jess, what are your thoughts on Sesko, Bakayoko, Douglas Luiz, and Diamande? Bruno just seems like we'll end up paying 120 million. Sesko, I would take him in a second. I think he's the best option for the situation that we're in. Bakayoko, of course I would take him. I wanted him from the moment he turned Kivior inside out. I was like, that's the kind of player that Liverpool goes and gets and turns him into a 100 million pound winger. Just like that. The talent is just so there. It's so obvious. And he has the physicality and athleticism to play in the Prem. Douglas Luiz would not be my number 1 option at center midfield. I like Bruno Guimaraes a lot more, but what Douglas Luiz has that we do not have in our team currently is a dead ball threat. And so that would kind of make up for not being my favorite option. But, if we got him, it is what it is. It's an upgrade. Having a balanced midfield with the players with the right qualities instantly takes us up a level. Just like how we all loved how we looked with Jorginho / Thomas Partey and how it gave us that boost. Just imagine if that player wasn't 1,000 years old. So yeah, I would take him. And Diamande, I prefer Hato at this moment, not because I really rate Diamande. I think one of our bigger issues is the left back situation is not sorted. I don't actually think any of the options that we have actually are all weather all the time. And I will say it 10 toes down every single day. Timber is going to play on the right. He was bought for the right. The depth chart behind Edu said he was for the right. He played the other day on the right. He's going to play on the right. So we need to find a left footer, Timber type for the left, so that we can stop with Zinchenko. Tomiyasu doesn't offer enough going forward. Kivior is not really a left back. And so I can see a scenario where we buy somebody like Hato. He's the left back. That will throw uncertainty on Kivior, but it is what it is. And Tomiyasu will be the backup center back because he really needs to be playing center back. I don't think Tommy's body is built to run shuttles up and down the sideline. So as much as I like Diamande, I think going for Hato would be a better use of finishing off the starting 11. I think we need a starting left back that we can count on every day, like we do Ben White and, Timber will do too. So that's kind of where I'm at with it, with all of those. But I would take Diamande. I just feel like we would still be looking at left back. What are we doing? And let's just say, if Ben White if he does end up going to get the surgery, which I feel like he should, then Timber would start on the right, and then we'd be looking at left back, like, because I still feel like, as much as I like Tommy, I do think that he should just play center back. There's just something about, like, when he plays left back, we're more secure. And as long as we don't have Zinchenko there, we're usually more secure. But there's still something really lacking on the left-hand side in terms of, like, the passes forward. And once you get in and around the box, they're just too stiff, Kivior and Tommy. So I think left back just needs to be sorted. So that's kind of what I would do. And how I feel about all of those. So yeah, DS says, hi, Jess. Boy says we should get Xavi Simmons, him and Havertz swapping positions would destroy teams. I do think that, like, recently it's been, like, confirmed that he won't really be transferred anywhere. Like, I don't think we'll get him. I don't think anybody will get him. He'll either, like, stay at Leipzig or end up back at PSG. I don't really see that as, like, a viable option. But I do think having a player of that quality in the team would help us. And I could see, like, Nwaneri being that for us, kind of like a wing option, a midfield option. But Arteta would have to be confident in using him. And that's the only thing stopping him from greatness, I feel like, is just, like, being integrated into the team. Keenan says, I agree, Jess. We should take the money for Zinchenko and reinvest in Hato. It's a no-brainer. Didn't realize what was going for surgery. White was going for surgery. I had read that, like, when he signed the new deal, that he's been dealing with, like, a consistent issue with one of his knees. And so, like, those, like, periods of time where, like, Ben White doesn't look like he can run at all, it's usually because of that issue. And so he decided, like, not to get surgery or whatever, because obviously we need him, but, like, the option is there for him this summer to get it. He's not going to the Euros. And so it'd be so nice if he could get that surgery and almost, like, ease his way back into the team. Timber allows him to do that, but then that leaves the left-hand side still a little weak. And that's kind of why I'm like, you have Kivior, Zinchenko, and Tommy, and none of them are ever going to be the level of Ben White or Timber. So we need to get somebody that can do that. And then maybe the center backs can just kind of be center backs. So yeah. Dale says, please elaborate on Timber on the right. Seems like Timber is a player Arsenal would want to start 30 plus starts. I mean, I don't really know what to elaborate on. Like, there's just common sense would say, like, fullbacks are rarely ever bought to play on the opposite side in which they usually play. Like, it's very rare. And so you could make the argument that we just always were going to play him on the left. But even, like, the first time that we seen him play for Arsenal was on the right against, like, Manchester United in preseason. I think he started playing on the left because we needed to switch things around and Zinchenko wasn't fit, because at the beginning of the season, Zinchenko was not fit. But the depth chart behind Edu in one of the pictures that he recently took showed Timber and Ben White on the right-hand side. Timber is a right-sided, right-footed, right center back, right back. So to this mindset of, like, he just was always going to play on the left, I think is an easy way to rationalize in your mind that we're just always going to play with Timber and White, where I do think that White needs competition for his side. And we also need to look at a player that's different to him and better than him at certain things. And so I always thought Timber and White were going to play on that side, and White was going to have to, like, his position would change a little bit. He also becomes right center back depth too. So that solves our right-hand side. Timber, Ben White, and Saliba is the perfect right side. The left side still needs surgery because we haven't really solved it. And buying Tomiyasu, we bought Kivior and Zinchenko, all of them have kind of, like, so Timber, obviously, like a right-footed Timber on the left-hand side is better than all of those options. So you use that, but, like, it still doesn't solve the left-hand side. It just doesn't solve it at all. So it needs surgery. Like, we need to just buy a player of Timber and White's quality on that to play on that side. And unfortunately, like, we bought players and I think we thought that they could do what Ben's doing, but Ben is a freak of nature. Like, he genuinely is such a quality footballer that you could probably play him in midfield and he'd probably make it work. And playing fullback for Arsenal, Ben White said it, is hard. Playing fullback, you have to be a center back, you have to be a right back, you have to be a midfielder, you have to be a forward, you have to be everything. And unfortunately, I don't think Zinchenko or Kivior or Tomiyasu are going to be on that level. I just don't see it. They leave a lot to be desired in different ways. And so to bring somebody in of like Hato's level where you know he can do most of those things, it comes natural to him. It won't feel as forced as it is with Kivior and Tommy, and we know what Zinchenko's frailties are. So yeah, the idea that we always bought Timber for the left, to me, was just because I don't think people can envision a team with true competition where even Ben, as good as he is, will have to fight for his position. But every spot should be like that, and his is no different. We know that there are times where Ben is like he's like that really steady quality player in the team and will always be that. Like he's so good, but there is a gap in his game that can be improved with Timber in that position. And so I'm not slighting Ben at all. I still feel like he's a non-transferable. He's the kind of player that you have in a title-winning team, but there's always like he has gaps in his game. That's all I'm going to say. Like the wide defending, he has some limitations in the final third at times too. Like it's not like that deep. Like you know what I mean? Like Ben White also has limitations. And so Timber can mitigate some of those limitations because he has things in his game that Ben doesn't. That's all I'm saying. So Keenan says, Hato, Gabriel, Saliba, Timber, White will hit like crack. It's basically inverted fullbacks with defensive solidity of center backs. And I think that's where we're trying to get to, like Hato and Ben White, and then Timber can be on both sides, start, whatever. You can play Hato and Timber, White and Hato, White and Timber. Like you can play all of those. Like those three are better than what we have now. Having Timber, White, and Hato is better than having White and Kivior and Tomiyasu and Zinchenko. It's better because you just get so much more. And so yeah, for me personally, like I just feel like it's so necessary to get somebody that can play in that position. So yeah. Gunnar says, realistically, we need two defenders to replace Denny and Kivior. I think, and here's what I would disagree with that. I think one player can be more impactful than two. I think like if you had one player instead of Fabio Vieira and ESR, I think that one player could be better than the two of them. I think if you have one player like Hato, that could be better than having all three of Zinchenko and Tommy and Kivior. I think we have a very bloated squad with a lot of players that can do pieces of things, but aren't good enough to be good enough for us every day of the week. And so quality over quantity always. I think you could get rid of Kivior and Zinchenko and bring in Hato and be just fine. Seriously, like one player can be so much more like that. That's like why, and I know we're going long here, but why when people say that like Man City have two teams, they don't. They have 18 players of a level that is so high that they can switch those players around and really not drop off. Like 18 players. We have like 22 players where like 6 of those are like almost unusable or can only do some things in certain situations. And if you got rid of 4 of them and replaced them with like 2 players, or the 6 of them and you replace them with 3 players, we'd be so much better off. So I actually don't think we need like 2 defenders if we were to get rid of Kivior and Zinchenko. I think just one player could do the job. Somebody that's always available, like top level physicality, athleticism, availability, technical level, can give us so much more than 2 players. I think we need to consolidate our team a lot. Like, I actually don't think we need 23 world-class players. Like, we need, like, realistically 16 to 18, you know? So, yeah. Keenan says, also, fuck City. We hope we win the quadruple this season and send Pep packing. Period. What Keenan said. Nostradamus says, let's just hope Timber isn't a regular with the physio. Let's hope. Let's hope. Burmese says, CF Sesko, CM, Bruno G, left back, Hato, and maybe one more signing. And Samuel, I'm not saying Kivior is not a good player. You guys know I rate Kivior, but I do think that he's just a center back. You know, I think maybe he needs another year to take on that role, but that role that Ben White plays is so hard to play. And I think at times Kivior did well, like in the stretch where we were playing well, but I think there are some gaps there where if we could just buy somebody, I would just do it, because I'm not sure that it will ever be fixed. I'm not sure if it's just like he needs to play more time there. His awareness in those wide areas is not the best. He makes some really almost like schoolboy mistakes at times that sometimes we were punished for, other times we were not. And I just think sometimes people are just center backs, you know. So I'm not saying Kivior is not a good player, but I actually don't think we have many players that are not good players. We're splitting hairs here. The margins are fine. When I say that, genuinely, we could get rid of both Kivior and Zinni and bring in Hato, potentially, or a player of his level, and be much better off. That doesn't mean that I think that those two players are not any good. We're talking about fine margins. That could be the difference between, you know what I mean? So that's all I'm saying. It's not that I don't think he's a good player. I actually think he's a really good player. I think we bought him for a role that's not his best role. Martin N says, I think we need Mikel to make use of our squad players a lot more. Samuel says, his not playing over Big Gabby, that's it. But the thing is if Arteta doesn't feel confident enough to rest Gabriel to play Kivior there, and the only time that he played Kivior at left back is when he was forced to, that's the reality of the season. Kivior wasn't playing at all and was never an option at left back until literally both Tomiyasu and Zinchenko were out. He was forced to use him in the moment that either of them were available. Tomiyasu and Zinchenko were available. They both played, and Kivior went back to the bench. So the reality is I don't think Arteta rates Kivior that highly, because he won't rest Gabriel at all to play Kivior there. And he was only played him when he was forced to. In the moment he didn't have to play him anymore, he dropped him. So I think Kivior, as I think he's a good player, I still think that there are players that could be better for that particular position. That's a very difficult and one of the most difficult positions besides the 6 to play for Arsenal. I think the 6 and the fullbacks is the hardest position to play at Arsenal. You're asked to do so many things in both of those positions. And so if you're not Ben White, which most players are not, you're struggling. You're struggling to play that position. So yeah. Gunnar says, with Ben White surgery, I hope Arteta doesn't overplay Timber. I think we still need to manage his minutes. Yeah, we'll see. I think by the time we get there, Timber should be ready to play. But, I mean, that's the point. Keenan says, and we have to get top of our outgoings. Realistically, we should be going for Hato and Diamande, especially if Ben's surgery is confirmed already. So, yeah. Guys, this was an excellent show. I was only planning to go for an hour, and somehow it's been 2. But time flies when you're having the best time with the best community. So yeah, so we have the Champions League final. I'm not going to do anything for it, no watch-alongs or anything. I'm just going to chill and watch it. But let's see, Monday for sure you're getting a show. Let's see. I just want to see if I'll do something on the weekend. I don't want to promise it and not do it. But if I do come on at all, it'll be Sunday. Tomorrow will be a day off. So unless something breaks or something happens, you won't see me again until maybe Monday. So make sure you guys like this video, subscribe to the channel. There's 378 of you guys watching, which is so cool. So I expect to see a lot of likes and some new subscribers if you're new. If I didn't get to your comment, because I saw somebody was mad that I didn't get to their comment, literally there's hundreds of comments that are coming through. So if I didn't see you, it's not because I'm ignoring you. It's literally because I probably didn't see it. So I'm sorry. But also, if you want to make sure that your comment is read out, you could do a super chat, or you could just spam the chat, because some of you guys do that, and then I'll see it. So, the free way to get on my nerves, it also get on my nerves, is spam the chat so I can see it. It's fine. As long as you're not spamming bullshit, it's fine. But I'm sorry if I didn't get to your comment. It's not because I was ignoring you. It's because literally there's hundreds coming through and I don't always see them. So sorry about that. But yeah, maybe Sunday, definitely Monday. And if something breaks, I will be here. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, and all that kind of stuff. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.